Hello, and welcome to BIM 360 Basics. Today I'd like to talk to you about review workflows, how you can use BIM 360 to take some documents in your project and pass them through one or more individuals to be approved. Let's get started. So you'll notice I'm on the project admin page, and I'm going to go over here and click Reviews. This is where it all starts. I need to set up a review workflow, kind of like a template. And you can see I've already got one created here called Test 1. I'll go ahead and open that and show you what's inside, working my way from the top down. First is just the name of the review. I called it Test 1, not very inventive, but it works. You'll notice that this is set up to be a single review followed by a multi-review and then a final review. I'll explain what that means in just a moment, but you can see it kind of graphed out here. And notice the icons that indicate a single person review, a group review, and then a final review. So I've listed myself as initiator, and that's kind of how these review workflows work. You take each step in the review and you assign either a person, a role, or a company, or any number of those to each review step. So you'll notice I've assigned myself as the initiator. That means I kick off the review process. Now I could have entered a role here or even a company, and that would have worked as well. Next is the first or initial review. You'll notice this is set to be a single reviewer, and the reviewer that I've assigned is the role of designer. So anyone in my project who has the role of designer can participate in this initial review. But notice it's only a one-person review. That means one person's going to review the drawings that have been submitted for review, and once they submit them, once they submit their review, it's on to the next step. Only one person. You'll notice that this second review is called a multiple reviewer type. You can see if I drop this down, we've got two choices, single and multiple. There are some additional options with this, but you'll notice that I've assigned the role of architect. So anyone in my project who's been invited that has the role of architect can participate in this step. But there's a difference here. If there are 5 architects on the project, any one of those 5 could participate. And notice I've listed a minimum number of reviewers required, and I've set that to 2. That means no matter how many architects are involved in the project, as long as 2 of them submit a review, we're able to move on to the next step. Now I could have set that to any number, 3, 4, 5, or 1, which really wouldn't make sense with a multiple reviewer type, but that's a really interesting way to set things up. So if you've got a set of drawings and you want your architects to take a look at them and you want at least 2 of them, this is a way you can do that. And then finally, we have the project manager as the approver. So this is one role. It could be one individual. I could have listed individual people here for the reviewers for the second review step. There's a lot of flexibility here as far as whether you use individual or roles or companies. I've also edited the labels here. This used to say approved and rejected, and I thought that was kind of harsh. Basically, I want to say if there are no comments on the drawing, it's complete, it's accepted. Maybe another word would work there for you. And where this used to say rejected, I just simply changed it to please address comments. So a little less harsh than approved and rejected, and really more appropriate because I'm not really rejecting the drawing. I'm just sending it back into the process to have the comments addressed, and we'll take it through another review. Some other options down here about copying documents to another folder when they're approved. We're going to keep this example as simple as possible, so I'm not going to use that option, but just note that that is something that you can do. So again, just to review, we've got 3 steps: an initial review, which is one person. Then we've got the second step of the review, which can be up to 2 people. So as soon as 2 of our architects approve it, it will move on to the final review, which is a one-person review. And that one person can choose that the drawing is complete or that it needs to have comments addressed. So we save that, and that sets up the template for a review process. Now we can have as many of these as we want in a project and utilize them, mix and match them for whatever we need. Something else I'll say is this example that I'm going to show you is an internal review. So everyone in this review works in the same company. That doesn't have to be that way. You could have different people in different companies, people outside your company participating in the review. Maybe the final reviewer is the owner, or maybe it's a planning board in your county or something like that. All right, now that we have the review template in place, I'm going to switch over to document management. And I've got an extremely simple project here. There are no subfolders anywhere. It just has two documents, a ground floor and a second floor sheet. I'm just going to check the box next to those two documents. I'd like to enter those into the review process, so I'll just select them and then go up here and click the icon for Submit for Review. Notice I have the option to select an approval workflow. I've only got one in this project, so that's a really easy choice. But for your project, you may have several. Notice the overview here that just tells me what I've selected, how many steps, which ones are single, which ones are group, etc. I can give this a name. I'm going to call it Test 2. And it just gives me a review of the documents that I've chosen. I could add more here if I like, or take the documents away that I've picked. This looks good. This is the way I'd like it, so I'll click Submit. So I've initiated the review, and the next step is for one of my designers to perform the first initial review. Notice how it automatically knows who fits into that category. There's only one person in my project who fits into that category. Her name's Paula White, and she's going to be receiving a notification that a review has been initiated and that it's her turn to do her part of the review. Now I want to flip over to this slide here and just talk about how this particular review process is set up. So we've got our 3 steps to the review. We've got our designer review, that's first, and then our architects review it, that's second, and then our final review is going to take place by our project manager. Now in this particular project with this company, I've actually assigned individuals to this. So our designer is Paula White, so we've got one person that's going to perform the designer review. Then, and maybe Paula's the lead designer, that's why I've chosen her. And then for the architects, there are 3 of them that happen to be on this project. But remember, only 2 need to complete the review for the review to move on to the 3rd step, which is to the project manager. The project manager, being the final approver, is the only one that will be able to select the final status of the drawings, whether they're complete or require to have comments addressed. So this is how our review workflow is laid out for this specific example. So the review process is initiated. Paula White, remember she's the first one in the process, she would have received an email with a link in it that would take her directly to the review. So I'm going to log out as myself and log in as Paula so you can kind of see her experience. Okay, so I'm logged in as Paula, and let's just imagine that Paula has opened the email that she received and clicked on the link. That would take her right to this screen here. This is the open view of the review. Now let me take you back a little bit and just point out that in your project you can click on the Reviews tab and see any reviews that are either actively open, or closed, or in any other state in the project. You'll notice that I've been toying around with several review workflows here. The one that I just created is this one here that says its status is open. So at any time you can go to the Reviews tab here and click on a review to enter it. And that's what I'll do here. And this is the same view that Paula would see when she clicks the link in her email. So Paula enters the review. She sees right away there are 2 sheets that require review, and she can click Start Review and jump right in. Now, if there were multiple people in the project that had that design role, any one of them could have started this review. The thing to remember is once one of them starts the review, then no one else can review the documents that are being looked at. So it's kind of a one at a time deal. Even as you'll see when we get to the group review, it's still one at a time, but they all happen to just be packaged into a group. So Paula has begun her review. She'll, I'm sure, click on each one of these documents and take a look inside. open the PDF. This happens to be a PDF. It could be a PDF, a DWG, a Revit sheet, even a Revit model. It doesn't have to be a 2D document like this. So as she's scanning around, she notices something a little odd. These two exam rooms are smaller than the others. So she's going to make a comment about that. Exams 2-1 and 3-1 are too small. She'll go ahead and add that comment. And commenting is something you can only do within the review workflow. And the reason I mention that is that something else Paula can do is she can also do a markup, which is something you can do outside of a review workflow. One difference is, and this is something subtle you may or may not notice, when I'm in a review workflow and I create a new markup, let's say I just want to put a call out pointing to this room. I'll type out too small. And I'll just copy that and paste it, drag it down here. A little easier than typing it out twice. So now I've got two labels within this one markup that are both just indicating that the rooms are too small. When I click Save Markup, you'll notice that while in the review workflow, it's going to default to the published mode for the workflow. It's still saving here, but you'll see in just a second it comes out as published. When you're outside of the review workflow, the default status is private. That's kind of a neat little feature so that you don't have to go through and publish each markup, because you're in a review process, you're going to want everyone to see the markups, right? So that's the idea with that. Okay, so Paula's made some comments, she's made some markups, she's ready to move on to the next sheet. So she just comes down here to this little toolbar and advances to the next sheet, examines the second sheet. Maybe on this one everything looks good. So she just puts the comment in, all good, no comments. And that's it, she's all finished. She can close down any documents that she has open. And if she's ready, she can go ahead and submit her review. And what that'll do is it'll submit her comments and markups that she's done, and it will move it on to the next step in the review. Now, if she starts into the process and, I don't know, the phone rings, she picks it up and it gets her into something else that she knows she's not going to be able to do this now, she can click Release Task, and that's kind of like clicking Cancel. It's going to take her comments away. It won't, however, take the markups away. Those are going to stay with the drawing. So if she really wanted to clean it up, she'd have to go in and archive those markups. Now, one thing that people with certain permissions can do is void the entire review. So apparently Paula's been given some pretty high permissions in this project, and she can wipe out the entire review, void it, and stop everything. Typically that's something we won't only want a project admin to do. All right, so in this case, Paula's going to click Submit Review. She can type in any notes that she wants to type in, maybe, review complete, and click Submit. The other thing that's going to pop up is it's going to allow her the opportunity to notify the next people in the review process. And notice that it automatically picked up on there are 3 architects in the project, 3 people that have the architect role assigned to them. And all 3 of these people are going to get a notification that a review step requires their attention. She can add an additional message here. She can even select other people in the project that she may want to include. She can also skip this step, which wouldn't be a good idea because Greg and Tom and Paul aren't going to have any idea that they need to review the drawings unless they get in and click on the Review tab and see that there's something waiting for them. So I'll click Send here, and those 3 individuals are all going to get an email. So let's flip back to our slide just to get a refresher on what we're doing here. So Paula just completed her review. Now it gets pushed on to the architects group review. So right now there are 3 people in the project that are architects, and 2 of them must comment and not necessarily approve. That's kind of the wrong wording there. 2 out of 3 of them must submit a review for this to move on to the final step. Okay, so 2 or 3. 2 out of the 3 must submit a review, not necessarily approve. Approve and reject comes in the last step, so sorry for that little miscue there. So I'll log out as Mindy, and flipping back to our slide, our 3 reviewers are Tom, Paul, and Greg. So I'm going to log in as Tom so you can see what Tom's experience would be. Okay, so I'm logged in as Tom, and let's pretend I've clicked the link in my email that takes me straight to the review. This is what I see. I see the two drawings that are included in the review, and I see that there's already one markup and some comments from Paula White. I can hover over her icon here and see that she commented. I can even click on the comments and just get a quick preview of them on the right side of the screen. So really easy to see kind of what's going on and what the status of things are. So I'm ready to begin my review. I'm going to go ahead and click Start Review. And if I watch carefully, it even tells me that so far, 0 out of 2 reviewers have submitted their review task. So there's my indicator that there are 2 reviewers required in this step. I'm going to be the first one. So I'll click Start Review. And I see the same things that Paula saw. I see my 2 drawings. I can click into one of them, provide comments, provide markups. So maybe I'll just simply say here, I agree with Paula's comment. Everything else looks good. I'll move on to the next page. And then maybe I notice some other things, like there are some labels here missing for the room. So I'll put a call out here, missing room label. I'll do that again. And then I'll add a comment. I'll say missing room labels, C markup. Okay. So now we see there's a comment from Paula and a comment from Tom. And as more people add more comments, this list will grow and grow. And each comment that's made, you'll know who it came from, what the comment is, and what date and time it was created. So all of that information is being tracked. Notice that if you want to, you can go back in and edit a comment, or you can delete it if you kind of want to get rid of it and start all over again. All right, so let me save that markup. And Tom is all done with his review. We still have a markup saving here, so let's just hold on a second. There we go. And Tom submitted his comments, whatever markups he wanted to submit, and he's ready to finally submit his review. And by the way, even though it's a group review, no one else in the group can do their review until Tom submits his or releases the task, which again is kind of like clicking cancel to make it available to the other reviewers. So even though it's a group review, it's more the idea of multiple people have to review it and submit their review before it can move on to the next step. So you're really just grouping people into one of the review steps. Click Submit. The system will automatically know that the other reviewers need to be notified. There's no reason to prompt me for that. It automatically knows that not all of the reviews have been provided, so it's going to see, let's take a look at our slide. It's automatically going to send an email to Paul and Greg letting them know that one of the people in their group has submitted their review, and it will prompt them to go ahead and do their review. So let's just say Paul is out of the office, he's on vacation, so that's going to leave it up to Greg to be the second person to complete this review. So I'll log out as Tom and log in as Greg. Okay, so I'm logged in as Greg Rodriguez, and again, I've clicked on the link in my email and it's taken me right to this page. And I can see the documents in the review that I'm responsible for. I can see that 1 out of 2 of the reviews are submitted. I can see that there have already been some comments from Paula and Tom. So I'm going to dig in and provide my 2 cents in the review. So I'll just keep things going. Oh, I forgot a step. Can't just open the drawing. And what I noticed is I didn't have my comment functionality down in the bottom left. And the reason that happened is I didn't start the review. So I'll start the review. Now I own the review step, or the review task as it's called. No one else can review right now until I'm done. I either submit the review or release the task. So now I'll go into the sheet, add my comment. I also agree with Paula. Paula must be a smart person. Everyone agrees with her comments. And move on to the next step. I agree on the room size. This is like the easiest review that ever happened, but again, we want to keep it simple. I'll go ahead and close down the sheet. And submit my review. Notice that this time, because 2 out of 3 of the reviewers is satisfied, that's the minimum, it allows us to go on to the next step. So it automatically pops up this, basically an email, allowing me to notify the final reviewer, which in this case happens to be Mindy Patel. She's the only one in the project that's in that project manager role. And she's going to get notified that a part of the review is now ready for her to take care of. So I'll click send on that. We'll log out as log out as Greg, and we'll log in as Mindy. So let's take a look at our slide one more time. It started off with Paula, our single reviewer in the designer team, and then we had 3 reviewers in the architects team. We only needed 2 of them to submit their reviews, so Tom did it first, and then Greg. Paul was out of the office, but that's okay. We only needed 2. And as soon as Greg completed his review, it moved on to the next step, the final approval, which is our project manager approval. And there's only one person in that role, and that's Mindy. And that's how we're signed in right now, as Mindy Patel. So I'm signed in as Mindy, and I'm seeing the view that I would see if Mindy had clicked the link in her email. And I'm seeing kind of the same things I saw before, but it's going to be a little bit different this time. I'll go ahead and start the review just like the other folks did. Notice this is the final review, and what's important about the final review is that it's got this extra column of approval status. So Mindy's the project manager. She should know more about the project than anybody. She clicks on the first drawing and sees these comments about exams 2.1 and 3.1, and she zooms in and says, okay, I know what's going on there. I discussed this with the owner, and this is actually what they wanted. So I'll type in owner approved room sizes. These are okay. So everyone can calm down. The room sizes are just fine. They may look small, but they're not. They're actually not too small, according to the owner. And we can move on to the next sheet. And Mindy can read through the comments that have been made. She can agree with that and say yes. Room labels are needed. Add her comment. Now you can see we've got comments from 3 different people, actually 4 different people, all gathering up in this comment stream over on the left. Of course, in a real project, there would be a lot more of these. So we'll say that Mindy is done with her review. Now she's ready to choose a status for each one of these drawings. So if you remember, the one issue we had on A101 was the room size, but it turns out that's owner approved. Not a big deal. So that doesn't need to be addressed. She can set the status for this to complete. No need to change anything. But then on this second sheet, we do have the issue where the rooms need to be labeled. So we're going to say, please address comments. And remember, you can customize the messaging here. The default is approved and rejected, but you can have these be whatever you like. So now Mindy submits her review. That's the final step. And that completes and closes the review process. So if I were to go back to the Reviews tab, I would see that that review is now closed. And if I were to go on the Folders tab and look at those documents, you would see in the status column that their status is now recorded. Now, something you need to know is that's version specific. So as soon as I go in here and upload new versions of these documents, they become version 2. These statuses go away because they are associated to version 1. And likewise, if I were to upload new versions of these files, and go back to the review, this review is version specific. So this review is going to store version 1 inside of it, and it's always going to stay version 1 because that's the version we reviewed. Another thing that maybe you should realize out of that is you can't make a change in the middle of a review workflow because it's version specific. This review only deals with version 1 of these documents. So you can upload a version 2 if you want, but as far as this review is concerned, it only knows about version 1. So the way you would handle that is you would go through the entire review and complete it, and then update it to version 2, and then do the review process again. That's the intention. So that's how review workflows work in BIM 360 Docs. I hope that you'll use this process and find it useful. I think it's a great way for you to digitally establish a review process either internal to your office or maybe even with multiple companies and multiple offices where you need to pass a set of drawings or other documents through multiple people to get them approved. Because it's all digital, because it's all in the cloud, you don't have to pass paper around, you don't have to email files around. Everything you need is right here in BIM 360 to not only put the documents through the review process, but also add commenting, markups, and even automate the notifications as the review progresses. Thanks for visiting BIM 360 Basics. Keep checking back at BIM360basics.com for more tips, tricks, and tutorials that have to do with BIM 360.